Well, hi again, everybody. Doug Miles along with Don Henderson as we come to you on Saturday, March the 18th. And Don, I know I haven't been able to do this in a couple of weeks with you. I had some bad allergies, so good to be back doing a little sports talk today.
Day after St. Patrick's Day, we're all ready to go. Spring training coming down to the home stretch. As we said, the final 10 days. The season opens on the 30th, and so it's been a lot of fun. But as you said, we've had great weather, but the allergies have been bad.
Tough weather if you suffer from pollen, and of course red tide, unfortunately. I know a lot of people that come down this area for spring break dealing with that at the beaches.
Yeah, they really have. And the last couple of years we've had very light red tide, but for some reason the last 2 weeks has been very bad.
Yep.
And hopefully for the hotels and for the spring breakers and so forth that it'll finally clear out. But now they've got that mass coming in from South Africa or wherever the heck that's supposed to hit the United States. That's not going to be too good either or the other.
Always something to deal with.
Nature can get you.
That's it. Don, you and I had a chance to go to opening day with the Orioles, but since then you've been to several games over at Ed Smith in Sarasota. Saw the Phillies, saw the, who else?
Minnesota.
Minnesota?
I've seen Toronto twice, Minnesota. I think I've seen 6 games in all. The Phillies were here once, and they'll come back at the end of spring training, just before they head back to Philadelphia to start the season. You and I talked about the World Games and how now we've had a number of players that have been injured. Diaz losing from the Mets, he's out for the season. Patella or whatever it was in the knee.
Heard it in a celebration.
Yes, after a game.
Which you never want anybody to get injured, but that's a freak thing, and out for the year.
Yeah, out for the year, and so it's a big blow for Buck Showalter and the Mets because he was the #1 reliever in all of last year. Just signed that big 3-year contract, a lot of money, and he's out for the year.
Just getting to the Orioles. Again, we talked about it when we were at the stadium a few weeks ago, a team that had been in terrible shape for several years, but last year they had a decent season under Brandon Hyde, and I guess optimism for the Orioles, right?
Yes, they have a lot of young prospects, 10 actually in the top 20 in minor league baseball coming in. A namesake, the third baseman Henderson, is probably the #1 young player coming in this year that they expect to be Rookie of the Year and really be a dominant force in the American League East. Should be a lot of fun. I think Baltimore, they deserve. It's been a long time since they've been a competitive team.
Yeah, it's been a while. Of course, the attendance, not quite what I think a lot of teams expected in spring training, a little surprising.
Really surprising, and I talked to Boxleiter, who does the announcing, the PA announcing there yesterday. The first sellout crowd they had was in Toronto 2 nights ago, over 7,000. But for the most part, spring training has been very disappointing.
Yeah, because you figure travel has been up the last year.
Yeah.
Loosened regulations and all the COVID thing is pretty much hopefully gone. So you figure more people would come down, but at least it hasn't shown up as far as the spring training attendance.
No, it hasn't, and you're right. It's surprising because after a couple of years of not having a lot of attendance and spring training has always been a real dominant spring force here in Sarasota. This year it's been very tough for them.
Yeah. Kind of a sad note since we did this last. A guy we got to know a little bit over the years at an affiliate we were with here in Sarasota, WSRQ, which was a Tampa Bay Rays radio affiliate. Their longtime announcer Dave Wills passed away a couple of weeks ago.
Surprising.
58 years old.
Did a game on Sunday, went home, and passed away Sunday night in his own house in bed. He had been with the White Sox for a number of years. I believe 18 was
18 with the Rays.
The number here with the Rays. Very popular broadcaster. Very well liked. Has a lot of friends in Tampa, and he had missed the final 2 weeks of last year,
right,
because of a heart problem. And this time, I guess the heart problem came in, and he didn't realize that he had done the game in the afternoon. Went home, went to bed, and passed away.
I mean, you know, if you're going to pass away, that's the way to do it. But you did have some kind of heart issue they dealt with at the end of last season.
And not that old.
58.
Yeah.
And, very popular announcer. He and Andy Freed have been together for a long time.
Very long time.
And we got to know them a few times doing some remotes with them. But yeah, kind of sad when you see a guy that young, particularly still in the prime of his career.
Yeah, Andy, his partner, I originally met him. He did the Trenton games.
Right, he was up from Jersey area. Right.
Yeah, he did the Trenton games when it was the Red Sox and also when it was the Yankees before he came down here. And very, very nice guy. In fact, my wife at the time, who passed away, taught his kids in school.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
taught his kids in school, Ewing High School, and right outside of Trenton.
Right. So I don't know. They have not announced any other.
No, I
announcer
haven't
yet.
heard anything.
So I know the Rays don't do their a lot of the games during the week. They just do weekends, I believe, on radio. I think Andy's been obviously doing those, but no announcement on who may join the Rays broadcast. But anyway, they're going to do a tribute day to him on April 22nd, I saw.
Well, as I say,
so-
certainly well liked,
Very well
received
liked.
very well
Yeah.
here in the Tampa area, and just a shame. He's just a young man, really.
Think about the radio broadcast, not quite like it used to be. When we were listening, and the radio voice was more the voice of the team. Not quite as much as it used to be, but Dave Wills still made that kind of impact, at least here in Tampa.
Yes, absolutely, and of course they had the separation between the radio and the TV too. And
Right.
Harry Callis' son was here for such a long period of time, then he left to go to Houston, and has been doing very, very well.
Yeah, went over does the TV with Houston. Right?
Does TV with Houston. For some reason, and I don't know why, he had worked at the Fan. He had worked for Prism in Philadelphia doing the Philly games. Came down here. His dad had a place down here for years, and he loved it. And he stayed in Tampa and never went back to Philly or to New York, either one. And just worked the games at the Trop. And for some reason, he didn't want to do. And I never knew why he didn't want to do play-by-play all the time.
He do a fill-in, but he wasn't a regular.
No.
He was a pre- and post-game guy.
No, and then when the job opened up in Houston,
Right.
he
Where his
went
dad
down.
used to work.
His dad worked there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he went from Hawaii. His dad went from Hawaii to Houston to Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So anyway, we remember Dave Wills today. Another kind of name from the past, Don. Joe Pepitone.
Oh.
People might remember him from the Yankees, kind of like the last of the 60s Yankees that came up. He passed away at 82, but more known for being very controversial.
He certainly was, and spent three. Phil Mushnick, as you said, did a big piece in a post yesterday about it. Spent 3 years at Rikers Island for transporting drugs. Always
keep out of his own way.
Always had a great relationship with the Yankees. He came back after the problems and was a sort of an assistant batting instructor for a while.
Right.
But when he was more known for his hairpiece than he was for, although he was a pretty good player,
I
outstanding
looked at his
defensive
stats.
player.
He had over 200 home runs.
Yeah, he was a
decent
solid
hitter.
player, but was he controversial and a troublemaker.
Wasn't he the first guy, too, they said brought the hairdryer into the locker room?
Yes, with an artificial hair, but the hair dryer.
The hairdryer. I remember I grew up in a town in Long Island called Floral Park, and this was like, I don't know, maybe the late 70s. He opened a karate school
Oh, did
in
he?
Floral
I
Park.
didn't
It
know
lasted
that.
about 6 months, and it was gone. So he apparently had a lot of businesses like that seemed to kind of not last.
He was a wild guy, drinking, and we talked about it earlier, going out to breakfast this morning. Last time Mushnick saw him, he wrote it in the paper yesterday, he saw him in the lanes.
Right.
And
He said he was surprised he lived to 82.
Yeah, he said he was surprised he lived to 82 with all his troubles, and
Yeah.
he was very...
Still on
Phil
using
took
drugs,
offense.
unfortunately.
Phil took offense that he called him Mush like he was a friend of
Right.
his. And he said he was no friend of his.
But yeah, look, he was in the '63 and '64 World Series with the
Yes,
Yankees, so he was
yeah.
on some of those good early, or late early '60s
Yeah,
Yankees.
he
teams.
was a player. I mean, he
Yeah.
really was. He was just so controversial, always getting
But
in
then the
trouble.
Yankees fell apart. I think he wound up with the Cubs and
Right.
a couple other teams later on. But anyway, just kind of a name from the past Yankee fans might remember, Joe Pepitone.
Joe Pepitone.
Passing away at 82 this week. And we'll just kind of wrap up with the NCAA tournament, Don. Of course, you broadcast that for so many years up in Philadelphia with different teams. But something that's only happened once before, right? A 16 knocking out a 1 yesterday.
Not only that, the city of Philadelphia, the first time since the 40s, did not have a team in the NCAA.
that
Usually,
right?
yeah, Philadelphia has a minimum of 2, most times 3, but a minimum of 2. Villanova came as close as anybody. They got into the NIT and lost in the very first game. So Philadelphia was shied out of any of the NCAA competition. And where everybody was looking at Rick Pitino, what's he going to do? Is he going to get a job now at St. John's? Is he going to go to
Pushing St. John's
Georgetown?
on him.
Yeah, what's he going to do? But Philadelphia had a tough year this year basketball-wise.
Speaking of the coach, the USF coach, Brian Gregory, after 6 years, he was fired
Yeah.
last week. He came over from the Michigan State staff, I think Brian Izzo's staff, and just couldn't get anything going here. It's very tough to recruit. So USF, not only do they have a new football coach this year, but they're going to be getting a new basketball coach.
Yeah, and the women's team, I mentioned to you going out to breakfast this morning, I watched a little bit of the game last night. They won in overtime, and but for schools like University
They don't
of
get
South
hardly any
Florida,
coverage at all. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult for them to recruit.
Yeah.
Football-wise, basketball-wise. They had a relatively competitive basketball team this year, but it's just too tough to
Just can't
recruit.
get you're fourth or fifth on the list.
Too many teams.
And you're in a league still, the American Athletic Conference, which is not a good basketball game.
No, too many teams like Alabama who can go out and shoot somebody and still play.
That's it. But anyway, so that's what's going on as far as that goes. But we'll do one next week as well. But Don, interesting week of sports. We're kind of heading into the start of the regular baseball season coming up soon, and playoffs in hockey and basketball.
Yeah, we'll be in the Sweet 16 next week, which should be a lot of fun. Hockey will be just getting underway, so that should be a lot of fun. The Rangers, Devils, Islanders all trying to make a run, and everybody looking at the Lightning. They've had some very strong games, but they've also had some shakers. So it's going to be a great playoff.
We'll talk to you next week. Thanks for watching, everybody.